Some of the important compound formulations of Guggul are Kanchanar Guggulu, Kaishor Guggulu, Gokshuradi Guggulu, Trayodashang Guggulu, Tripala Guggulu, Mahayogaraj Guggulu, Yogaraj Guggulu, Dakshadi Guggulu, Vyoshadi Guggulu, Vatari Guggulu, Sapta Vinshatik Guggulu, Simhanada Guggulu, Panchamrit Guggulu, and Punarnava Guggulu. Among the major causes of its depletion in nature, the foremost is the indiscriminate and illicit cutting and tapping of gum by contractors and others, the sterile seeds, the slow growth, and the mortality of the plant after tapping gum.
Keeping these factors in view and also the need for its absolute conservation, the Central Council for Research in Ayurveda in Siddha in the year 1972 initiated large-scale cultivation of Guggul plant in its Guggul herbal form. Manglia was in the Ajmer district of Rajasthan. This form is the country's largest Guggul herbal form and is also a pioneer one in importing technical know-how to most of the education institutions as well as scientific institutions, both at government and private level. The important chemical constituent of Guggul are Z-guggulsterone and E-guggulsterone besides 3 guggulsterols. The Central Drug Research Institute Lucknow has developed a standardized Guggul extract for the treatment of hyperlipidemia. This drug is now commercially manufactured in India and has been marketed under the brand name Guggul Lip. Both Guggul gum as well as Guggul lipid have now been officially recognized and included in 1996 edition of Indian Pharmacopoeia.
The chemical composition of the oleo gum resin is highly complex and is being investigated by several scientists in laboratories. Chemical compounds are being isolated and their chemical structures are being studied. To conduct pharmacognostic studies, samples are collected and tests are carried out.
This institute initiated work on the bioevaluation of Commiphora mukul, that is gum Guggul, in 1970. We demonstrated in animal experiments that this plant, particularly its extract, definitely shows hypolipidemic activity. By that I mean that going through the regulatory pharmacology, toxicology and clinical trials, the compound has been established as a hypolipidemic agent and has been marketed by one of the Indian companies.
This is the laboratory of the Central Drug Research Institute at Lucknow, one of the many spread all over India. Phytochemical analysis of Guggul is being done and research work is in full swing to discover the active ingredients essential to preserve health and remove the suffering of mankind.
It is very interesting that the concepts and findings of the ancient scholars thousands of years back, we are again confirming and finding the same truth by the modern investigations, and show that by integration of the Ayurvedic concepts and the modern techniques, we can do and discover very good remedies for the human ailments that are cropping up in these times. Not only the systemic disorders like hypercholesterolemia, but also the very fatal diseases like AIDS and cancer and all this.
Pharmacological and clinical studies of Guggul in hyperlipidemia and lipid metabolism is one such step. There has always been a need for suitable and better hypolipidemic agents. Experimental trials have proved the effectiveness of Guggul.
Sushruta explicitly
describe its use in the treatment of obesity and lipid metabolism and associated complications. Taking this lead, I planned these studies using C14 cholesterol both for experimental animals and clinical human subjects. The use of Guggul as a hypolipidemic agent was proved through these studies beyond doubt, as it was observed that the main effectiveness of Guggul is mainly because of either increase in the removal of cholesterol via gut, or due to the reduced synthesis, or it could be due to better mobilization of cholesterol from the tissues.
The Central Council for Research in Ayurveda and Siddha, New Delhi, is determined to leave no stone unturned to explore further and further the usefulness of Guggul, which were highlighted by the Maharishis Charak, Sushrut and Vagbhat and others.
The mention of Guggul in classical literature is available right from the Vedic period, especially in Atharveda, Charak Samhita, Sushruta Samhita and other Samhitas and Ghantus. There is a beautiful description of the etiopathogenesis of leopard disorders and obesity, where its treatment has been mentioned with the Guggul preparations. The council has carried out different studies, that's the collection of the material, there's the resin Guggul, there's gum Guggul, and clinical studies, chemical studies, pharmacological and experimental studies have also been carried out. The council has published 2 monographs, clinical studies and experimental studies on Guggul, especially on leopard disorders, and then pharmacological and clinical studies on hyperlipidemia. The armamentarium of clinical therapeutics in Ayurveda would be incomplete without the description of Guggul preparations. And at present, the council is concentrating on its studies on leopard disorders and in arthritis with the use of Guggul.
The efforts of the CCRAS are bearing fruit of a high order, and the manifold properties of Guggul have been established for the world to see.